Hello guys, I hope you all are doing good. I am Vaishali Kikan and we are discussing the VLSI technology. In that, today we are going towards the end of this playlist and this is the video on the summary and the future scope. So I hope you all have seen the full playlist and I hope all of the topics are covered from your end as well. I have tried my best to cover all of the topics in this playlist, and if you feel any of the topic is still left, you can put the topic in the comment or you can mail us the topic and we will be trying to make the video on the same topic as soon as possible. So now this is the final video. The second thing that is required is your feedback. That is the utmost thing that we require. Whenever you watch this video, whenever you have completed all of the videos, you just need to do one thing. You have to provide us your feedback. Okay, so you can provide us your feedback through mail, through Facebook, through Instagram or any social media site where you can find us, and this is the best thing that we require from you. Okay, so let's come to the final topic of the day, that is summary and the future scope. So we have talked about the various technologies. We have talked about how this VLSI industry has evolved in the past. So in the 1960s, the first IC product came, which was bipolar dominated, which means it was based upon the electrons as well as holes. Okay, so it was having N-type as well as P-type impurity in it, right? So we were having PMOS at that time, and for the doping, the only process that was used was diffusion. Okay, and for the gate, we were using the metallic parts for the formation of the gates. Okay, so this is the technology of the 1960. You can see in the figure, this is my N type of silicon. Here we have P types of doped region which are formed with the help of diffusion process. Okay, this is my gate oxide. This is a thin oxide that I have. Okay, and after the metallization, we will be having the chemical vapor deposition of the oxide. So this is a simple product that we had in the 1960s. Okay, so it was the PMOS. Coming to the 1970s, okay, it was also bipolar dominated. Okay, we were working upon NMOS. Okay, so what is the difference between the 1960 and the 1970s technology? One major difference that came was in the process of diffusion. So diffusion was replaced by ion implantation. So the doping is done now by ion implantation and previously it was done by the diffusion. So ion implantation is having various advantages over diffusion. So I hope you have seen the videos on diffusion and ion implantation and you now are able to understand how ion implantation is better than the diffusion. So in after mid 1970s, ion implantation replaced diffusion for the doping process. So here we had self-aligned source and drain, okay, in this process, and we were having polysilicon gate. So metal gate was replaced by polysilicon gate, and self-aligned source and drain was leading for the formation of compact structure, right? So we were having compact structure with the help of the self-aligned source and drain. The main driving force was electronic watches and the calculators in which these IC products were getting used. So this is how the NMOS in the 1970s was looking like. Okay, so here we have the P-type silicon, we have the N-type doped region. Okay, so we were having the polysilicon gate over here. So we have the phosphosilicate glass layer over that, and the metallization is done with the help of aluminium silicon alloy. Okay, after that we will be having the silicon nitride layer over this. So this is also a simple structure which represents the NMOS which was used in the 1970s. Coming to the 1980s, it was the era of MOSFETs. So MOSFETs surpassed the bipolar transistors. Okay, so we were having CMOS here, and CMOS was having the advantages over NMOS and PMOS. Okay, it was faster than NMOS and PMOS. Okay, so this is a very big advantage because we want faster and faster devices. Okay, we were having multi-layer interconnection. We were having multiple levels also for the interconnections, which was making this design somewhat thicker, but there were advantages because of these multiple level interconnections that we had. So the main driving force was the personal computers. Okay, in the personal computers we were using these kind of ICs that were developed in the 1980s. So you can see we have various levels over here. Okay, so this is the CMOS. We have the P-type substrate in which we have formed the N-well. and here you can see we have the N plus doped region, N plus doped region. Okay, so this is my NPN MOSFET, and here we have the PNP. Okay, so this is how we will be having our polysilicon gate over the NPN structure or as well as the PNP structure. Okay, after that we have the layer of borophosphosilicate glass, and the metallization was done with the help of aluminium, copper and the silicon alloy. Okay, so after that we will be having undoped silicate glass layer. Okay, and second layer of the metallization. This is the second interconnection level with the help of aluminium, copper, silicon alloy. After that we will be having oxide and the nitride layer. Okay, so this is somewhat complex structure that was used in the 1980s. So coming to the 1990s, so it was also MOSFET dominated era. Okay, we were working with the CMOS, we were having multiple level interconnections like in the 1980s. So the multiple levels were increasing. So we were having tungsten silicate as well as we were having the chemical metallical polishing process also. So the main driving force was PC, personal computer, the network and the internet as well. So you can see we were having the various levels. Okay, so this is the P well, this is the N well. Okay, it is formed in the P type of epitaxial layer. So here we will be having NPN structure, here we will be having PNP structure. Okay, so after that we can use the aluminium copper alloy. This is the second layer where we will be using the aluminium copper alloy again. This is the third layer and this is the fourth layer. So always we have used the aluminium copper alloy. After that we can use the various surface passivation layers like the silicon nitride. Okay, so this is how we will be forming a complicated structure as compared to the 1980s structure in the 1990 year. So coming to the 2000s, so again it was MOSFET dominated. CMOS was used because because of the speed advantage. We were dealing with the CMOS more. So it was using silicon on insulator substrate. Okay, it was again increasing the speed. It was giving a higher benefit towards the speed, right? So silicon on insulator substrate was preferred. Then we were using copper and the low dielectric constant interconnections. This is also a very good advantage. We will talk about it in detail. The main driving force was telecommunication network, internet as well as personal computer. So this is how you can see we were replacing the various metals with the copper. So metallization was replaced with copper. We were having 5 level interconnections. Okay, so here we will be using lead tin alloy as well. Okay, so now this is how we will be having the final CMOS in the 2000s. So in the 2000s the CMOS was getting a bit more complicated. So now why we are talking about copper in 2000s? So copper replaced aluminium as well as tungsten. There must be some reasons behind it. So why we are mostly talking about copper? I had already talked about copper when we were talking about the metallization, right? But here also I am giving you a brief reason why the aluminium was replaced with the copper. So the copper was having the lower resistivity. It improved the device speed. It was having higher electromigration resistance, right? So electromigration resistance was a big problem when we were using aluminium. So it was giving me higher current. It reduced metal layers, that reduce the processing steps, right? So whenever we are having more processing steps for the fabrication of any IC, what happens? The cost will increase. We don't want that, and for that we can replace aluminium with the copper. So it will be having lesser number of layers and it will be having lesser processing steps. So it will be lowering the production cost overall. So I hope now you understood how the production cost is lowered, and with effect of that the overall yield will be increased. So now coming to the low dielectric constant materials. The second thing I said that was used in the year 2000 was the low dielectric constant material. So the low dielectric replaced silicate glass for the interconnection applications. Okay, in the CVD, CSG and alpha FC was used, and in the SOD, HSQ and the porous silica were used. So the combination of copper and the low dielectric constant materials were used to improve the overall speed. So we want faster and faster processors, and for that we use two type of materials. First is copper, second is low dielectric constant material. So we can work with high dielectric constant material as well. So capacitance of MOS gate capacitor has to be large enough to hold enough charges. And how we can increase the capacitance? So when we increase the capacitance, it will be holding more charges, right? So now when it will be holding more charges, it will be for our advantage, for our benefit. So it will be reducing the feature size if the gate capacitance reduces. Okay, so high dielectric, thinner gate dielectrics are used to prevent the leakage and the breakdown currents. So now we can use the titanium dioxide, who's having dielectric constant 60. So we can use Ta2O5, which is having dielectric constant 25, as well as HFO2. So now we can use BST. What is BST? BST is having a special formula, Ba half strontium half TiO3, and it is having the dielectric constant up to 600. So we can use the DRAM capacitor also for the dielectric purposes. So now coming to the next generation lithography, right? So when we were using the photolithography was having a limit on the feature size. We were having 50 to 35 nanometer feature size that was used in the year 2010, and after that we want the compact and compact structure. We want smaller and smaller feature size, and for that we can use the next generation lithography like the extreme UV lithography. We have already talked about it, and we can use the projection electron beam lithography. We have talked about the EBL as well. It is still in R&D that how we can use the next generation lithography to reduce the feature size further. Okay, coming to the developing industry. What is the developing industry? The developing industry is the one which is developing, which means it is not a matured industry, and which means some technologies are still inventing each and every day. So we are getting new and new technologies in this industry. So if I talk about VLSI industry, it is still a developing industry. So after more than 50 years of its establishment, semiconductor industry is still a developing industry, not a matured industry like the automobile industry. Automobile industry has matured in comparison to the VLSI industry. We have some new technologies in the automobile industry as well, like we are working upon the self-driving cars, right? But overall, if I talk about the automobile industry, it has matured. We are just combining it with the new technology. Okay, so the automobile industry is not getting developed again and again. It is not getting some new technology, right? So we are combining one more technology as in the form of self-driving cars in the automobile industry. Some of you might be having doubt that we are still working upon the R&D of automobile industry. Then why is I am saying that automobile industry is a developed industry, right? So I hope now you understood why I am saying it is a developed industry. So new technology is introduced in the VLSI technology almost daily. This is why I am saying this is a developing industry. Technology which is less than 10-year-old can become obsolete. Okay, so we cannot work with the older technology in VLSI industry, but we can work with the older technology in the automobile industry. So coming to the 3 mm size and beyond, if I have the larger and larger wafer size, we can cut out more number of chips from this wafer. Okay, so we are having currently 300 mm transition, which is 12 inches. Okay, it will become mainstream, but it is costing more than $2 billion to build the 300 mm wafers. Okay, and 400 mm wafer labs or wafer fabrication was started by year 2010. Coming to the chip demand of the world. Why this industry is a very important industry for the future purposes. I told you I will be talking about the future scope as well. So coming to the world chip demand. So we want lower chip prices. Cheaper consumer electronics are the requirement of the future. We want our electronics, our laptops, our mobile phones, our watches, each one of these things to be as cheap as possible. For that, this VLSI industry has to become cost friendly, right? So we want lower chip price, okay, for the TVs, for VCR, telephones, PCs, and I gave you some more examples as well. For each one of them we want lower prices. So steady economic development of the developing country, especially China and India, is impacting the whole world as well as it is impacting the VLSI technology. So it has dramatically increased the demand because these countries are now a big consumer of all of the VLSI devices, right? In the devices where I am using the chip, India and the China are the big consumer of all of these devices like VCR, the PCs, laptops, mobile phones, right? So it has dramatically increased the demand, and this is the reason we require more and more chip. And population is increasing. For increase in the population, the demand of these kind of consumer electronics is increasing. To compensate this demand, we have to provide more and more chips into the world. So coming to the auto chip, so the global location system and the voice activated internet access may become standard feature in the future automobiles, right? We have already talked about the GPS. Okay, so GPS is a technology which is used in the future automobiles. So automobiles and the VLSI technology can also be combined. So in the near future, General Motors will consume more IC chips than the IBM. IBM is making all of the laptops, right? So IBM is consuming the chips and the General Motors will be consuming more chips, which means automobiles will be working upon the VLSI technology. This is the merger of two technology, and this is the reason this technology is becoming more and more important for the future purposes. Okay, so in future, for every technology, for IoT, for automobiles, we are giving amalgamation of the VLSI industry or with the chips, so that it will be enhancing the user experience of the particular device. Like if I use a car, if I'm using the GPS in that, automatically it will be enhancing my experience of the particular car. Okay, this is very true. Coming to the biochips, so we want to have miniaturized test probes. Okay, we want analysis circuits that are there with us. We want pocket-sized circuits. We want pocket-sized test probes. For that we have to use chips. We want medical IC chips for DNA test as well. Okay, it will be giving fast, accurate diagnosis of DNA related diseases. We are suffering with the pandemic coronavirus, and for that also we are using some compact testing kits, and there also we are using the chips. And thus you can see what is the importance of VLSI technology in dealing with the pandemics in the future as well. In the future also there might be possible that some other disease is coming as a pandemic, and we have to work upon the VLSI technology for the test probe for dealing with that pandemic as well. We want a lab on chip. So coming to the telecommunication as well as the internet, the worldwide development of the telecommunication and internet will still be the main driving force of the continuing rapid development of the IC industry in the near future. Okay, we have talked about the various programs which are enhancing the penetration of the internet in the rural areas, in the villages, and in the very developing countries, very poor countries as well. So for that, what is the requirement? The chips. The VLSI industry is the base, right? So this is the next importance of the VLSI industry. Future is bright. So boom bust cycle of the IC industry would be there. Demand for IC chips will steadily grow. So will the demands for the skillful and the knowledgeable workers will be increasing. So this is how I can say VLSI industry is the technology of the future. So coming to the life after the final limit, when this technology will become a developed technology. So physical limit may be reached by the year 2030s, and the feature size from 10 to 5 nanometer will be achieved. IC feature size can no longer shrink. Why? Because it has finally become matured, because we have reached to the final level of the atomic size, beyond which I cannot go less, and we cannot reduce the size of our feature of our components. The transistor, MOSFET, capacitor, resistor, any of the component cannot be shrinked after that. So less frequent technology changes would be there. We know that we are changing the technology, our processors are changing from i5 to i7 to i9 in such a less time, but now less frequent technology change. So what does it mean? That as of now, we are witnessing technology change in a very less time. We are moving from i5 to processor to i7 processor to i9 processor in a very less time. But in future, it might be possible that we have come to a mature technology, and after that, the technology changes would not be impacting for a very long time. So it still needs large number of workers, just like the auto industry. So I hope you understood each and everything. The same thing I am saying again, your feedback is the utmost thing that we require, okay, for our motivation and for improvement as well. So I hope you like this session, I hope you like this playlist, and I hope you will be giving me the feedback, the thumbs up, and share with your friends, and you will be giving your comments, your valuable advices as well. Thank you so much.